Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with Kansas City-based pianist and educator, the great Dr. Michael Pagan. These days, he is a very busy musician playing the piano nightly around Kansas City, along with being a professor at Ottawa University in Kansas. He's directing Bravo, the Ottawa University Jazz Singers, and teaching jazz piano. He just released a new CD in August of 2015 called the Ottawa Sessions, and it's impressive. From the streets of Ohio, his path made its way to KC, and he digs it quite a bit. Dig this interview, my friends.
First of all, I want to just thank you for taking a little time to talk with me about your album and what's going on in your world of jazz.
Absolutely.
Let me go ahead and start off and just kind of ask you generically, what has been going on with you lately?
I'm keeping very busy these days as a working jazz pianist and a composer, arranger, and an educator. I'm playing piano weekly at Cafe Trio in Kansas City. I'm in my 7th year there playing solo piano. It's really dinner music, and I play requests, but they give me a lot of latitude in terms of what I play, so I get to play a lot of jazz there. And then I'm also at Jazz on the Plaza in the Raphael Hotel with Steve Ragazzi, and he and I have a duo called Pagan. Yeah, and we play about every other Monday. About 2 Mondays out of the month we play there. And then I'm teaching at Ottawa University, Ottawa, Kansas. That's about 45 minutes southwest of Kansas City, down in Ottawa, Kansas. And we're building a jazz program there. So there I teach jazz piano and classes. And also I direct the Ottawa Jazz Singers. It's a group called Bravo, and it's a vocal jazz group, and it's a lot of fun directing them. So that's a little bit about what I do. My record came out in early August, the Ottawa Sessions. Features Bob Bowman, who's really one of the elder statesmen of jazz bass players in Kansas City. It really has a national reputation over the years. And then Brian Stever, who's a prodigious young drummer, excellent musician. So I'm very happy about the reception I've gotten on the release so far.
Yeah, those are some dynamite players, yeah. I'm going to get to the Ottawa Sessions, but I first want to ask you, and this is kind of ripping a page a little bit out of the Joe Cartwright playbook here, what do you think about having a regular gig at clubs around here in hotels in Kansas City? Is it cool to have a nightly kind of thing like that?
It absolutely is a good thing. I mean, the steady gig is like a base of operations, and really the venue or the kind of a place it is, whether it's a hotel, lobby, or a restaurant, or a bar, or a club, really doesn't matter that much. What matters is what you make of it, what kind of music you bring to that venue, how you get your following to come and be attentive to what you're doing, and sharing that music and moving our art form further. So there are a lot of places in Kansas City that I would say are jazz-friendly, that are receptive to jazz and supportive of it, if it will bring in people. There aren't very many venues in Kansas City that are solely dedicated 100% to programming jazz music, but Kansas City is no different from any other big city in that regard. If anything, Kansas City is a little bit special because it's one of the 4 meccas of jazz, being, New Orleans and Chicago and Kansas City and New York. Those are really the four cradles of jazz. Kansas City, ranks very high that way. But even then, you got a few venues. We know which ones they are. We don't have to list them, but that really do jazz. But then there are a lot of restaurants and clubs that have jazz entertainment as well. And I think those places are important, and those club owners and business owners are to be applauded and to be recognized and thanked for helping to support the music.
Yeah, and I would imagine being in some higher-end places like that, playing on a regular basis, you probably accumulated some stories over the years. Do you have a really good story of running into somebody or something that may have happened while you were playing?
Oh, man. I mean, the stories, they just keep coming. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, it's less than 2 weeks ago, you're probably aware, Joe, that we had the Kansas City-wide Charlie Parker celebration.
Yeah.
As a celebration of Charlie Parker and his music. And at my Cafe Trio gig, the great trumpeter Clay Jenkins was down, and he came in, and we played together for an hour. He was on the Woody Herman band and the Stan Kenton band back in the 1970s. He's a legendary guy. He teaches jazz trumpet at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. Eastman School of Music is one of the very finest music schools on the planet. It's up there with Juilliard and all the really greats. And here he is in Kansas City, and I got to play with him and hang out and have dinner with him.
So let me get back into the Ottawa Sessions. It's been received really well. Give me a little bit, you said there was an interesting story. Kind of elaborate a little bit on this disc.
Yes, the Ottawa Session was really conceived from a couple of different angles. Obviously, it was done down at Ottawa, at our campus there. And there's an interesting story because a few years ago, the Olympic program at Ottawa decided to embark upon becoming an all-Steinway school, which means that they are going to get some kind of a gift from someone or a donor. And I got to be a part of that process. I got to be on, got to take a tour of the Steinway factory and watch how they make these marvelous things. They're made in America. They're made in Queens, in New York City, and it was really something. Now back to Ottawa, and it's been in our Frederickson Chapel for the last 2 years, and that was really one of the big incentives, one of the big motives. I wanted to do something really special and record with that piano. Bob Bowman and Brian Stever and I, we had a regular gig at a place called Piropo's up in Briarcliff, just north of the Broadway Bridge. And we were there for 18 months playing jazz and having a open mic, kind of a jam session every Saturday afternoon at 5. So that's where the group came together. We played every Saturday afternoon for a year and a half, but that's how we really got it on that way. So I think I got a working group that's really tightening up and sounding good. Then we've got this brand new piano at where I teach, and it all just came together.
That's cool, man. That's very cool. Let me get back to kind of the beginning of your life in Ravenna, Ohio. What was it like growing up there that fostered you getting on the path to loving jazz?
My parents were both musical. They were both keyboard musicians. My dad was a jazz pianist. He was born in Puerto Rico, and he came to the United States in 1943 and met my mother from Ohio, and they were married, and she was a musician too. So I knew who Bill Evans was when I was in grade school. My dad was breaking out the Art Tatum records, the Miles Davis, Oscar Peterson, and then I went to school at Kent State University and ended up with my master's degree there in composition and was playing gigs around Akron and Cleveland, which is a place, that's where I came up. And there are great musicians there. There's a great scene there in that part of the country, Northeast Ohio. It's a really interesting place. It's kind of got a lot of qualities that the eastern United States have. I was brought up very well. And then I left Ohio in 1986 to do my doctorate in composition at Northwestern, Chicago. And that was like the next major chapter in my life, being in Chicago for 5 years and learning all about the scene there and playing with some really big players there. Wound up with my doctorate.
Very cool. So what brought you to Kansas City, the Kansas City area?
I was up for a job to work at the UMKC Conservatory of Music, and it seemed like a really great opportunity. I was in Colorado before that, and I was working in the Denver area. I was actually teaching at the University of Colorado at Boulder, and this opportunity to come to Kansas City and work in the conservatory at UMKC, and so I went for it, and I did that for 5 years and enjoyed it very much. It was a real blessing to come to Kansas City and be a part of the team at UMKC. I didn't remain there, obviously. I ended up leaving that position, and I worked at the American Jazz Museum for 1 year doing marketing and communications, and that even brought me deeper into the whole music scene. By doing that post of doing the marketing for the Jazz Museum, I found out all about the different media outlets and how one can promote their music, and I made a lot of nice connections that way. And I'm still a big supporter of the museum and still do volunteer work for them whenever I can. And in the meantime, Todd Wilkinson, the great saxophone player, called me and asked me to join the faculty at Ottawa in 2011, and I've been there ever since. And I'm doing about 50 other things, too. When you're a musician, you got to do a lot of things. I go to Columbia, Missouri 1 day a week, and I teach in the jazz program at Mizzou. On Thursdays, I go there and teach a jazz piano class, teach 5 students. Arthur White directed that program, familiar face around Kansas City, and he's a fantastic saxophone player, composer, great educator. He's put out great records of his Mizzou Jazz Ensemble. Just a great program. And the jazz program at UMK is a fabulous program as well. We're really blessed in this part of the country with that. Then we've got what Dan Gailey has been doing for years since over KU. That's a tremendously strong, recognized program. And we're fighting the good fight down in Ottawa. We're an up-and-coming program. We're really excited about that. We have Bob Bowman as our bass instructor. Ryan Heinlein is our trombone teacher, and Ryan is getting a lot of play because of his phone company and also his group Project H. We have, let me see now. I'm thinking about Aaron Linshai, who's our jazz trumpet teacher, and Jeff Shirley on guitar and Todd on saxophone, myself on piano, and Keith Mallory is our drum set instructor. So got all the bases covered, and students are starting to respond to instruction. Have some really fun things happen down there. So I know you started out by asking where I'm from, but I ended up...
No, you did. You kind of covered a lot of questions that I had about a variety of things. So what I'm going to ask you now is kind of a general question. Why do you love jazz?
Oh, that's a fair question. It's a hard question to answer, but it's been asked of me before. And usually what I tell people is that I feel like I'm a musician, and I was one of those people who really couldn't see myself doing anything else or embarking on any other career. Jazz music is the style of music that I'm most fluent in. It's the style of music that resonates with me and that I'm most naturally adept in. I like classical music a lot too, and I play classical music, and I love that stuff. But the jazz thing is simply because of the improvisation element of that, and because it's about taking an idea and expressing it instantly through improvisation. That was something that really, really resonated with me from a very early age. The idea of being creative in the moment, based on a lot of hard work and practice and discipline and working at one's craft, and then being able to put it out there in front of a live audience or a recording studio is very exciting to me. It doesn't diminish my respect for classical musicians, and when someone says to me, I just can't improvise, I say, well, maybe you can. I have all the respect in the world for musicians who play in orchestras and who make a living doing that, and who make a living not improvising. That's a really important part, and it really makes me appreciate jazz even more. I mean, it's a great world we live in where we can be diverse and have different ways of accomplishing what we're going to do artistically, whether it's reading notes off of the page or whether it's reading notes off the page and then doing your own thing with it. It's a lot of fun.
So how do you feel about your decision to settle here in Kansas City, and how do you feel about the Kansas City jazz scene these days?
The jazz scene is always thriving and always evolving. There's always someone coming into town new. There are people who have stayed for a long time. There are always some people saying goodbye. I think that it's a really, really great scene where there are opportunities for one, and the opportunities are what you make them. So I'm a positive, can-do kind of person. I'm like Yoda. There is no try. There is a So I like the scene here. And what I was saying a few minutes ago about these venues and restaurants and places to play that are jazz-friendly, that's a real big part of it. And the people really do have a lot of pride here about barbecue and about jazz music and blues, too. I think that's important. There's a lot of civic pride in the music with all the different concert series that you have springing up in Kansas City and all the surrounding suburbs and towns that have outdoor summer concert series loaded with usually jazz has a presence on those kinds of things too. So I really think that this scene here, it may not be as big a scene as some of the other bigger cities. Let's talk about Chicago and New York and San Francisco and Los Angeles and places that are bigger than Kansas City for sure. But pound for pound, kind of say per capita, if there's a way to look at it in such a way where you could do it by scale, I'm sure that this place really holds its own with any other place on the planet in terms of the quality of the music that's being played and in terms of the support that it receives.
So speaking of Kansas City having a lot of acts come through and a lot of action going on, if you look back on the history of Kansas City and the musicians that have come through this town, if you could go back in time and see a show at any venue here, where would you go and who would you want to see?
Oh, man, that's such a fun question. I've never been asked that before. I would want to hear those Blue Devils that came from Oklahoma that had the Count Basie rhythm section. I'd want to hear them. I definitely want to hear Count Basie. I've heard so many funny stories about Count Basie, and I would love to have heard him and his band, even not with him as leader, even when Benny Moten had the band before he passed away, and Benny was running the band and Count Basie was playing piano in the band. I would have liked to have heard Lester Young, the president of the saxophone. And then the thing that will really blow your mind is that we haven't even started talking about Bird, and that's a whole nother chapter of jazz history, the bebop era, which was the next major era and the next major evolution of the music after the swing era, Charlie Parker. So I can't just say one person, Joe. I gotta say I would have wanted to have been there in the 30s to hear the Basie band, and then I would have liked to have heard Bird.
Well, you stay pretty fluid and active in your life, and you evolve quite a bit in the jazz craft. So let's say we get together in 10 years again. We catch up with what's going on. What are you going to want to tell me when I say what's been going on lately?
Oh, my. Wow. Awesome question. Well, on a personal note, I hope to maybe be a granddad by then. My children are grown, and they're young adults now, and none of them are married, but they're very happy and healthy, and they're awesome. One of them's a fabulous musician in his own right. So I could be maybe whipping up pictures of some grandkids, maybe talking about my latest big band CD. I did a big band recording in 2005, and now 10 years later, I've got enough material and I've got a big band together, which is another thing we didn't even talk about. But I run a big band under my own name, plays mostly my own music. So I would like to have done something with that, and then beyond that, just business as usual. Hopefully, still playing piano at Cafe Trio and teaching at Ottawa University and doing all the things that I do.
So let me ask you this. It's all going to come down to this question here. Somebody catches you at a gig in whatever outfit, whether you're at a hotel or you're with your group and you're playing or with the big band, and someone hears you, your name gets stuck in their head, and they come home and they want to Google you. What is your bio going to say? And what song would you want them to listen to, or songs?
I'd want them to hear something recent. I'd want them to hear what I'm up to right now.
Yeah.
For one thing. So one tune that I am particularly proud of is a tune on the Ottawa Sessions called Forgotten Space. It's track 5. And even though, unfortunately, the piano was out of tune on that track, this new piano that I was talking about is so ironic. I'm like bragging and making a big deal out of this new piano. Then you listen to that track, and if you really, you have to go, piano's out of tune. It doesn't matter, because the music, to me, superseded that. The music was so good that I had to move forward with the track and go ahead and put it on. So I'm very proud of that piece, because it was a piece that I worked very hard, and it kind of lets one know where I am musically in terms of the music that I write and the composing that I do. I guess in terms of if somebody Googled me, to your question about if someone Googled me, what would they see in my bio and that kind of thing, they'd see somebody who's a pianist, a composer, arranger, and an educator who plays a little bit of upright bass on the side and writes charts, and is kind of a generalist, like say utility player, but definitely kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, I play piano. That's the main thing that I do. But I'm conducting. I'm writing big band music. I'm writing arrangements for my Bravo Jazz Singers. I'm writing big band music. I'm for hire as an accompanist. I love working with singers. I worked with Millie Edwards here in Kansas City for years. We had a gig together on Monday nights at the Phoenix. She's still there every Monday at the Phoenix. I worked with Laura Chalk, a lot of singers, so I have an affinity for being an accompanist. So I guess I'm a pianist who's very diverse, and I even like to play classical music, and I'm kind of known for incorporating classical music and incorporating it into the jazz in a way that I hope is sincere and well received. Because sometimes that can be done in a way that doesn't work. But I've gotten some really good critical praise for the way I can kind of work the classical element of the music into some of my jazz.
Right on. Well, that seems right there defining who you are is kind of fitting end. Thanks again for your time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over America, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Michael for his passion, his music, and teaching the future. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things neon jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.